And we are live from the SoulWords House, just a half a block from the aisle. And one of our guests asked if we're going to give a shout out to a particular media figure who's I don't want to say who it is, but his first name is Tucker. And we want to tell him, Yehi Ratzain, Yehi Ratzain, Yehi Ratzain mevanecha, Hashem Elokeinu, Veloikei Avoseinu, Sheyiboneh beis hamikdash reida v'yameinu, Sein chalkeinu b'seirasecha. Sheyiboneh beis hamikdash reida v'yameinu, Sein chalkeinu b'seirasecha. He's God. Okay, just joking. All right. Beis hamikdash is not a joke, though. But we're so happy about it, and we're expecting it. And it's the most serious thing, but it's the most joyous thing. It's serious and joyous. Oh, okay. It is this week in this year when we're doing the Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph every Sunday, Tavshin Pei Vav, Parshas Pekudei are mechubarim together. Vayekhel and Pekudei sometimes are apart, sometimes they are together. So we get to do Vayekhel and Pekudei in Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph. It's set up according to the kvias, the schedule of a leap year where you have two Adars. So Vayekhel and Pekudei are separate. Also, it causes some interesting issues where, like, we'll see what happens. Like the Purim and Pesach stuff is kind of like later parshas after when we're actually getting to it in real time. But we're just going to go through it as it is in Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph because the point of this year is for posterity. We want people to be able to use this for years to come. Okay. Also, I just want to mention, because I just found a box of these, that I have the Ami Letters Volume 1. This is an anthology of advice columns from... Oh, hold on. And the Ami Letters Volume 2. Volume 2. Okay. And anyone who wants to write a book? Yeah. Oh, to write your own Ami Letters? Oh, you want to plug the course. Good idea. I have a course coming up called How to Answer Any Question. Not what to answer, how to answer, where I'm going to give away my methods for giving people advice or helping them uncover their own advice. Go to soulwords.org/how. The course is starting next week. soulwords.org/how. And register for the course, 3-part course, giving away all the methods for how to listen and help people to find clarity. And what I was going to say is I'm going to give away, where'd the Haggadah go? Oh, David has it. Okay, just hold up the Haggadah real quick. Anyone who comes to the class, we're going to give away these books. So anyone who comes here, we'll give you a copy of, that's the 4 Cups Haggadah, Recovery Haggadah. And plus we have volumes 1 and 2 of the Ami Letters. If you come to the shiur, in addition to the bagels and lox, we'll give you any of those sforim for free, just as a gift, as a little gift. Okay. All right. Yisrael, are you ready? Okay. And the reason we're starting late today, by the way, is because... No, the truth is, the minyan was late. My normal 9 o'clock minyan. I rolled in at 9 o'clock. Well, I was actually there at 8:58, and there was like 3 people there. And one by one, I was calling all the people from the minyan, like, "Hey, where are you?" And they were like, "Oh, I forgot to set my clock ahead." I'm like, "What do you have, a cuckoo clock? Everybody's clock today." How? Everyone's a plug-in clock. Okay, most clocks today just auto update, but whatever. Okay. Vayekhel. Let's do it. Page 187. You know what 187 is? In police radio code? 187? You don't know what 187? No. 187 is the police code for murder. You didn't listen to enough 90s hip-hop. Yeah, no. Der Anheb von heintige Sedre is Vayekhel Moshe kol adas bnei Yisrael v'yemer alehem elad dvarim asher tziva Hashem la'aseh say some sheish yom te'os malacha v'yem hashvi yelachem kedish Shabbos Shabbos and v'geimer. The beginning of this week's Parsha, Vayekhel, is, let's go slowly. Moshe gathered, that's what Vayekhel means, all of the congregation of the Yidden, and he said to them, these are the things that Hashem is commanding you to do, 6 days. I'm going to translate this carefully. Work shall be done. Work shall be done. And on the 7th day should be holy, a Sabbath of Sabbaths. Seinen in dem Veran viel diukim und kashes, was etliche von sei fragen euch die Mefarshe Torah. There are many little details here that many of the commentaries ask about. Aleph, for instance, one question. Was ist der Inyan von Vayekhel Moshe? Why does it say Moshe gathered? You don't find that anywhere else. The gewöhnliche Lashon Torah is doch Vayemer Moshe. Normally it says Moshe spoke. Doesn't say gathered. Wir stehen die meiste Erte und euch in der Parsha in etliche Psukim weiter by dem Tzivui von Trumas Mishkan. That's the way it says in most other places in Torah, and even in this Parsha itself, a little bit later when it talks about the commandment for contributing to the Mishkan. Okay, so the first question is why Vayekhel? Moshe gathered. Like, it's a departure from the normal language. Base. Sagt, Ela devarim asher tziva Hashem la'aseh seisam, und declared nit was seine devarim. He says these are the things that Hashem said commanded to do. Then he doesn't say what are those things. Reiv mefarshei Torah learning as das gate of tzivui trumas hamishkan. Now most commentaries say it's speaking about what comes up later, which is the donations to the Mishkan. Aber das ist doch schwer. That's a little bit difficult. Warum weiter bei trumas hamishkan sagt noch einmal vayemer geimer? Because later on it says vayemer Moshe said again. Muss man doch sagen as die Amira that this speaking of Moshe gate of an Inyan is talking about something different. Was is far dem zweiten Vayemer before the second time it says in Moshe said. Of them was sagt bald noch dem sheishes yomim goimer is doch and it must have some connection to what it says right after that, which is 6 days work shall be done. Is doch aber nit verstanden, but it's not understood. Of Shmira Shabbos, if you're going to say that these are the things you should do that Hashem commanded you to do, it's talking about Shabbos. Auf Shmira Shabbos seien sie doch schon angesagt geworden in der Seres Dibris. Shabbos observance was already covered many parshas ago in the 10 Commandments, back in Parshas Yisrael. So it's difficult to say that. If it's talking about the contributions to the Mishkan, which some commentaries say, it's a little bit strange because then why is it a second and Moshe said? If you're going to say it's talking about the Shabbos observance, which says right after these words, that's also a little bit difficult because Shabbos observance was already covered many weeks ago. Okay, Gimel. For was sagt der Shabbos Shabbosin? What's with the language Shabbos Shabbosin? Zweimal dominion von Shabbos, a double Shabbos. Dalet. This is the last question. Rashi sagt, und so steht euch in Gemara Medrash und Zayar. Rashi says, and it's also the same thing in Gemara Medrash and Zayar, as Vayekhel Moshe is given of morgen noch Yom Kippur. When did Vayekhel take place? The day after Yom Kippur, the very first Yom Kippur. The very first Yom Kippur was, remember, Moshe Kibbutz Torah Sinai, right? Moshe received the Torah on Har Sinai. That was right after Shavuos, right after Vav Sivan. Moshe goes on the mountain for 40 days, and then comes back Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, which became a fast day of calamity because the Yidden were worshiping the golden calf. And then Moshe breaks the luchos. He goes back up for another 40 days, begging for forgiveness. That ends on Rish Chodesh Elul, and then another 40 days of getting the second tablets, and then the full forgiveness happens on the 10th day of Tishrei, which is Yom Kippur. So Vayekhel takes place the very next day, the 11th of Tishrei. That's what Rashi says, that's what the Gemara, the Medrash, and Zohar all say. So here's the deal. B'shas Moshe Rabbeinu is Arab gekommen von Har Sinai when Moshe came back down off of the mountain. Von dem ist verstandig, but from that's understood, as der Vayekhel Moshe Gomer hat Sheiches zu Yom Kippur, was sein Ihnen ist Kippurim, was der Eibishter hat gesagt zu Moshe, Tzlach diker Varecha, was das ist die Kapara auf in Chet Egel. Davon verstehen, was ist die Sheiches zwischen sich. But now we have to understand, what does Vayekhel have to do with the atonement that the Yidden were granted after the sin of the golden calf? What's the connection? Okay. Base. Okay, so basically we have 4 questions about the very first pasuk of this week's parsha. Base. Vet men es verstehen der monendik frere die divrei Rezal wegen dem Diok von Loshen te ose tough with a tzerei, tzruya, ayin kmutza, te ose, und nit tase mit the pasach. Okay, so it's te ose, not taase. What's the difference? Tase mit the pasach meint asia bis askus, ton mit Vernommenkeit. Tase means do it, get it done, go do it. It's an imperative verb. Te ose mit the tzerei meant asiya b'derech memela. It shall be done. It gets done. It does itself automatically. As es tut sich ab von sich allein. Steht auf dem in Michelta mim keimei bis man Yisrael oisener tzeni shalmakim malachton and nasas aidechem. Michelta explains, it means that when Yidden do Hashem's will, their work will be done by others. So your work gets done. Come home, my laundry's all folded. Amazing. I didn't even have to do it. Gewaldig. That's te ose. It just gets done. Das die bracha von Himmel. That's the blessing we receive from heaven. Jeder inyan is doch aber da ich in der Aveda von Menschen. However, everything, this is an axiom, everything also exists in Aveda. In other words, you just told me something that's a blessing from heaven, that my work gets done without me having to actively do it. But that can't be the only meaning, because that has nothing to do with me. That's something that happens, and I'm sort of passive. But everything has to also translate into a corollary in our service of Hashem. So how do we translate this concept of teyasa, work gets done by itself, into our Aveda of Hashem, our service of Hashem? Is der inyan von Tease in Aveda as im Malachava uvden de Toil, was a Yid darf ton beschäftigt mehr Toil, darf sein onisaskus on the Vernommenkeit, nor as wie das wird sich getan von sich allein. It's teaching you that the way you get work done during the 6 work days, 6 mundane days, should be done without serious focus. You shouldn't, as we're going to explain at length in this Sicha. Yeah, you have to work. Sure, that's part of life. That's part of the natural order. But don't get so immersed in it. Like it says in Tehillim, Kuf Chav Ches, the work of your hands, or the toil of your hands, you shall eat. You shall eat from the toil of your hands. You will be fortunate, and it will be good for you. What does that mean? Was der Teich is, as the Yagia, was der Mensch harvet zu lib seine körperliche by definition, Toil. It means the work that you do in order to eat, meaning to take care of your physical needs. Darf sein, nor mit die Hand unendliche Gezenis te geben, warum kapecha allein. It should only be done with your hands. And hands doesn't literally means, you can only have manual labor be your profession. What it means is your outer faculties. We're going to explain. The Kopf und die hearts, the head and the heart, which are your innermost faculties, the most human and most unique qualities, darf liegen in Torah and mitzvahs. That should be reserved only for Torah and mitzvahs. B'shas ein hanhaga is yigia kapecha kiseichel. But when you only use your hands, again, it doesn't literally mean only your hands, but your extraneous qualities. When you only employ your extraneous qualities for your work, dan is ashecha v'tevelach. Then you're going to be fortunate, and it'll be good for you. Like the Maimer Azal, like it says, ashecha be'elam hazeh, fortunate for you in this world, v'tevlach, and good for you be'elam haba, in the next world. Und das meint euch tease bederich memela. So that's what tease means. Lignit in dem esek mit sein moyach und hearts. It means, yeah, you have to work, because that's how the Mashiach comes, and all the delicacies will be as plentiful as dust. There is such a concept as working, but don't put your head and heart into it. Tutes nor blois mit kayach hamaisa. Only put your kayach hamaisa. Only put your action into it. Und euch dem kayach hamaisa nutzt in dem mehr nit of wiffel es is nötig of zu machen a kli of birkas havaya. And even your action, only do the amount necessary for containing the blessing of Hashem. You're just trying to create a container. That's all. You're just creating a container. Don't overdo it. Don't get too... Get emotional about it? Well, it doesn't explain it here so clearly, but there's other Maimorim I would recommend, like Taglachas HaMetzoira from Derech Mitzvah of the Tzemach Tzedek. Over there, he uses a term called Hischakmus Yesera. Hischakmus Yesera means overthinking your parnasa. So obviously, most people do not just have manual labor jobs where you're digging a ditch and you can say Tehillim Baal Peh while you're digging a ditch. Most people have jobs where you do have to use your brain, and it would not be responsible not to use your brain. Like, you're an accountant. You're like, oh, I'm sorry, there's a lot of errors. I just was trying not to use my brain. No. Obviously, you're going to have to use your brain. But it means his chakmas yeseda specifically, the plotting and the scheming and what's the next chop? Your screen just died. I think your screensaver came on. It was a nice little ocean view. Okay. So, yeah, obviously you have to use your brain to a certain extent for most people's jobs, but don't try to think so much about how you're going to make more money and what's the next big thing you're going to do. It's like, yeah, you have to have a job, but like he says, it's a kli. It's just holding out. It's holding out a cup. I was on Kosher Money Pod with Eli Langer, and we were talking about that. He was asking about the spiritual approach to making a living, and I said that your job is just a cup, but the money you make is all blessings, and blessings are from Hashem. So that's what we're saying here. Tease, it shall be done. Not you should do it. Like, even when you're doing it, you're not totally doing it. You're just kind of showing up and you're being responsible. Yeah, you got to do it. You got to show up, but don't get so emotionally attached, and don't even immerse your brain into it that much, because it's not going to make a difference. They asked Reichman, the billionaire, he's a Holocaust survivor. He didn't have a penny, and he made this real estate empire. They asked him, if you started over from nothing again, and you had to rebuild your fortune. You ever heard this before? So they asked him, if you had to start your fortune from scratch, you had to do it a second time, would you do it any differently? So, no, they asked him, what's your formula? So he said, honestly, it's 95% mazel and 5% seichel. So they said, if you had to do it again, could you do it, and what would you do differently? He said, yeah, I would take the 5% seichel and switch it in for more mazel. Just let it be 100% mazel. At the end of the day, there's plenty of smart people. Leila chachamim lechem. There's plenty of smart people schwitzing, and they don't make a cent. And there are other people, they just fall backwards into money. It's all the Eibishter's blessings. Obviously, you can't do nothing and expect a miracle just to happen. So there has to be what I call plausible deniability. I speak about it a lot in my Shara B'tochen shir, that you have to have a job because that's plausible deniability. So Hashem could always deny that he miraculously sustained you, even though the truth is all sustenance is miraculous. But there has to be a cover story. Like, of course, that's how you have the money. You have investments, you have a job, you have a business. But the reality is it's all miracles. Okay. So the point is, don't get too into it. Varum der emes is, we're on the top of, Yisrael, by the way, we're like way onto page 188 already. Thank you. Yeah. Top of the second column. We missed the whole first column. The people watching missed the whole first column. All right. Varum der emes is doch as veracho Hashem alekach b'chol asher te'aseh. No, tase. There it is, tase. Hashem will bless you in everything that you do. Nit zayin asiya git parnasa. Here's the distinction. Your doing is not what creates livelihood. Nor di birkas havaya git parnasa. It's Hashem's blessings which provide livelihood. Mer nit was di birkas havaya darf haben a kli in tava. But the blessings need to have a natural vessel in which to take hold. That natural meaning, I don't mean like granola natural. I mean natural as opposed to supernatural. Not a miracle. Something that looks normal. Therefore, you have to do stuff. But it's just a vessel. Und therefore darf man tun in dem, nor as I feel of people as is Likkutei as soll sein a Kli. Therefore, you should only do the bare minimum. Das heißt, as die Kopf mit der Herz soll in ganzen nicht liegen in them. That means do not put your heart and mind into it. Of Tachbulais, about schemes, und das gleich and the similar. Und euch mit dem Koyach hamaise ton blaze of wiffel es is neitig. And even with your extraneous faculties, your power of action, you should only put what is absolutely necessary. Der emes ist doch, als es hat im Ganzen nicht gedarft, der leibt sein ton melacha. Wow, this is a chiddush. The truth is, working should not be permissible. We should not be allowed to work. It should not be a thing. It should not be permissible to work. How so? I mean, for all the cynics out there, it is permissible to work. And like we just said, you have to work. But in theory, the Rebbe says, it's weird that we are allowed to work. Why is it weird? Because Hashem fills the heavens and the earth. And the world is full of Hashem's glory. Gott Baruch Hu gefindt sich umatum. Is mitzad kveid melech machem locha mekadosh Baruch Hu hat nicht gedarf sein der erlaubt ton kein melacha. In respect to the glory of the king and the honor due to the king, you really shouldn't be able to do work anywhere in the world. Why not? Wie der Rizal sagen, like our sages say, man de machve kodam malka chulu, somebody who works in front of the king. Imagine that. The king is standing there and you're like straightening your papers or, I don't know, checking your emails on your phone or, I don't know, checking your stocks. Like, what are you doing? How can you work? Or you're, I don't know, you're chopping onions. I don't know, whatever. Like, what are you doing working in front of the king? It's extremely disrespectful. Well, Hashem, the king of all kings, is everywhere. So really, anywhere you're in Hashem's presence. Really, we shouldn't be allowed to work because it's an affront to the honor of the king. Es ist mir nicht, was die Torah hat gegeben Reshus und geheißen ton melacha. But Torah does give permission, and in fact, enjoins us to do work. As steht b'chol asher taseh, sheish yomim taved. Like the Torah says, in everything that you do, 6 days you should do work. B'meila is off vifels is noitik, but it shouldn't be overdone. Just the bare minimum. Hat doch of them die Torah geben Reshus. Only the bare minimum is what Torah permits. Aber mehr davon is außerdem, was das weiß doch, als bei ihm fällt der Ableg, als der Iker is, der overachla Hashem alekacha. But if you do more work than the bare minimum required, first of all, you're showing that you're not really feeling that Parnasa comes from Hashem. Und wie es wird weiter declared, we're going to explain later in Sif Hey in chapter 5. Is doch das euch in Indien von Kame Malka. But it's the other problem is you're working in front of the king, which is disrespectful. Okay, Gimel. You got to flip the page again. Yisrael's building a child gate working in front of the king. Okay. Vasisa Maika Lagagecho. This is not an actual Maika, but it's a child gate because we have a stairway right in the middle of the main event space. And I don't know if we need to keep it there all the time because we don't usually have little kids here, but sometimes there are kids here and it makes me nervous that they're going to jump into the stairwell. God forbid. So Yisrael is setting up the child gate. Is that going to leave a mark on the paint? Okay, good. We'll see. Okay. I don't know. I don't think we should leave it there the whole time. That's great. Okay. Yeah, amazing. You have to go get Jaime here and test it. I think I could break through it. If we did a little Red Rover, I think I could bust through that gate and go flying into the stairwell. But you have to get your kid here. Yisrael has a 1-year-old kid who toddles around and see if he can bust through it. I'm going to make a bracha on my coffee over here. Okay. We're on Gimel. In Flug is aber nicht verstandig, but at first glance it's not understood. For was ruft das der Posuk on Dafkem in Namen Yegia Kapecha? Why does the verse in Tillim say Yegia Kapecha, toil of your hands? Frat leit, wie gesagt, as das is belele velev, as nimmt sich nicht zum Herzen, especially because we said you shouldn't take it to heart, meaning you shouldn't put your heart into it. So why is it called toil? Wird man es verstehen, leut dem, was es ist bewusst, als wenn man arbeitet in der Sache, was man hat in ihrer Teinung, ist a viele Bescheid, man legt da rein, in dem Sache Keiches, wird man nicht so stark vermattert. It's a known thing that if you do a job that you enjoy, you don't actually get tired, or you don't get as tired. Weil man hat in dem Geschmack, because you enjoy it. Aber wenn man arbeitet in einer Sache, in welcher man hat nicht keinen Geschmack, if you do a job that you don't enjoy, it's a filo, man arbeitet nur ein bisschen, even a little bit of work, mattert das euch eis. That also makes you tired. Even that little amount makes you tired if you don't enjoy it. Also euch bei dem, mit dem, was hat nicht keinen Geschmack in Gashmis. So since he's not enjoying physicality for its own sake, tut in dem nicht wiffel muss, he just does the bare minimum that he has to do. Warum chotsch has euch dem esek nutzt der eis lave des Havai, because even though he uses his work for serving Hashem, bis man sagt, as euch der mit is mekayma mitzvah leit der meimer rezal and pasuk sheishes yomim taved, because there is, after all, that concept, 6 days you shall work, just like on the 7th day you shall rest as a commandment, 6 days you shall work as a commandment. So even as working as a commandment, that's true. As das is a mitzvah say, it's a positive commandment. Von deswegen, nevertheless, is a doch b'shas ma'aseh farnumen mit inyanim gashmi. It's still hard for him because at the end of the day, he's dealing with physical things, even though he knows it's for a higher calling, right? Und sein Teinig ist doch auf Ton in Inyanim was seine mitzvahs bagalo. And his real pleasure is to do things that are overt mitzvahs. Doing your work, l'shem shamayim, so you can give tzedakah, you can support your family. It's also a mitzvah, but it's indirectly a mitzvah. He would prefer to do an overt mitzvah. Learning, davening, doing tayag mitzvahs. But Mela is der Asik in Gashmias by Emma Hechrich, a gezwungene Sach. Therefore, when he has to deal with physicality, he's kind of doing it like he's compelled to do it. He's being forced. He's not that excited. And that's why it's called Yegia. Is mitzad dem Hechrich is euch das bissele was harvet nor blois mitten keich am Eisebelvad und das euch on die Stadler. So because he's doing it like in a compelled way, even the little he does, and even though he's only using his external faculties and he's not like overworking, it still feels like strain. Bismen ruf dason b'derech memele. And to the extent we say it's like almost like it's getting done by itself. He's not into it. He's not invested. Is aber mitzad dem was mitzad etzem adaver will das nit und wart schon auf dem Minut, wenn wird kennen verendigen dem Esek und nehmen sich zu Torah mitzvahs. But because he's not loving it, even when he's doing it, and he's really just waiting for the minute that he could stop doing work and go get back into Torah mitzvahs. Is euch das bissle was arbeitet in dem matet im starkois. Even the little bit of work that he does, it tires him. So that's why it's called Yegia. The Rebbe is not talking about a guy in Toil who learns all day, and then he comes home and he has to like wash the dishes, and he's craving getting out of the dishes and getting back to his Gemara. He's talking about a working guy who has responsibilities, and maybe even he has his own business, and maybe even employs people, and there is a certain amount of attention and focus that's required. But that's not his life. That's not what he lives for. Like, he's always sort of conscious in the back of his mind, I want to get out of my work mode so I can go do what I really enjoy, which is Torah and mitzvahs. And because of that, it's called Yegia. Yegia means toil. It's a toil. It's a schlep. Like, it's not, even if you like your job. I mean, that's the big debate. Is it better to like your job or hate your job? You could argue that you go both ways. You go either way. But the point is that work is not supposed to be your life. I know that in the culture that we live in, it became like, this is like the root of feminism, that they brainwashed the men that work should be their life. And then they told the women that in order to have a life, they had to have a job. Which the whole shirish of it, where it started was that they brainwashed the men that they should identify with their job as their life. Okay. Dalet. What do you do? Right. I learn in daven. That's what I do. I serve Hashem. Right. What do you do? You mean how I make a living? Like, yeah, you're right. It's we should stop answering that question the way people expect it to be answered. What do you do? Yeah. How was your flight? Yeah, that's another issue. That's small talk. Yeah. What do you do? They don't even care. How was your week? They don't even care. They don't even want the answer. And if you tell them the answer, they get all annoyed. Yeah, how was your flight? What do you mean? I'm here. I made it. Okay. Last flight I took, I arrived and they're like, how was your flight? I'm like, it was fine. And then I waited a second and I said, do you really want to know? Yeah, I want to know. I said, I think you're going to regret it. But I said, I think the FAA should make a law, or not a law, they don't make laws, but like what is it called? They don't have laws. They have not guidelines. Policy. There's a word for it. I'm blanking on. Okay. That anyone who has a conversation on a plane with a stranger or someone that they met on that plane should have to pay $1,000 fine. If it's before 10 a.m., it's automatically doubled. And if you do it twice on the same flight after you were warned, permanent no fly list. That's what I told these people. Tampa Bay Airport made a rule you can't show up in pajamas or slippers. Really? Okay. Daled. Und das ist der Pshat in Pasuk Sheshes Yomim Te'ase Malacha V'yemashi Shabbos Shabbosein. Das heißt, weekday soll kennen sein, der Shabbos, wie es darf sein, muss sein, der Akdama von Sheshes Yomei HaChoil, soll sein, Te'ase B'derech Memele. If you want Shabbos to be Shabbos, it all depends on how you treat work during the 6 days before Shabbos. If you are Tase Malacha, if you're into it, it's very hard to flip the switch and turn it off on Shabbos. But if it's Te'ase, it just kind of happens during the 6 days, then you can turn it off and go into Shabbos properly. It says a person should always view his work as if it's all finished. an Shabbos. Jeden Shabbos darf ein Mensch sich betrachten, wie sein ganzen Arbeit ist abgetan. Ist ob inmitten Woche liegen in Esek mit größt Tirda, dann ist euch Bescheid, es kommt Shabbos und will sich upreißen auf dem Tag. So then, if a person is totally immersed in his work for 6 days, then when Shabbos comes, he tries to rip himself away from his work. L'chol hapachas, he tries to do it at least for Shabbos. Von dem Asik und ton in Torah Tefillah, and tries to be involved in Torah Tefillah. Yistaklu bekarab de malka, to stare, to gaze at the preciousness of the king, meaning to be involved in spiritual things. Fallen him rein verschiedene machshavas, but he has these stray thoughts bombarding him, even on Shabbos. Seide machshavas in welche liegt die ganze Woche, whether those are the thoughts that he's having all week. Und noch mehr, es fallen him rein euch solche machshavas zu welche is nicht shaykh klar. He'll even have thoughts that really he shouldn't be having at all. Doesn't even make sense why he's having it. Why? Because really, it says here, the bad guys are trying to bother him. It's a Kabbalistic concept that the forces of negativity are taking advantage of him and harassing him. Wie bald hat geöffnet das Tier, is as men öffnet das Tier, spart man sich hin. Because when you open the door crack, they budge in, they burst in. B'meila kenen nit halten by Shabbos, and they can't have a proper Shabbos. I mean, maybe he's keeping Shabbos as far as like 39 forms of labor, but mentally he can't really have a Shabbos because the way he was living for 6 days is so immersed in work, mentally he can't just turn that off. Yeah. Ah, very good. Nobody heard that, though. I'm going to repeat it. Okay, can I repeat it? Yisrael says, saw a clip that the rabbis saying, Bachram are saying they have a Nisayan with using their phone on Shabbos. And he said, your challenge isn't using your phone on Shabbos, your challenge is using your phone during the week. Because the way you're using it in the week is what's causing it to be a challenge on Shabbos. Yeah, very similar concept. But if during the 6 days work just gets done, then is Shabbos Shabbos, and then Shabbos is going to be Shabbos. As like them der Adar von Shabbos, the light of Shabbos will shine. And Nachmer, even more. Shabbos Shabbosein, zweimal Shabbos, and even more. It won't just be Shabbos; it'll be Shabbos Shabbosein. Really Shabbos, Shabbos squared. Warum der was euch inmitten wach is bei Teasa bederchem memela is euch inmitten wach beginning Shabbos. Why? Because a person who even during the 6 work days when he's working, but the work just gets done automatically and he doesn't put his heart and mind into it, then even during the work days is also a little bit Shabbos. So it's Shabbos, Shabbosein. The 6 work days are Shabbos, then Shabbos are Shabbos, really Shabbos, Shabbosein. Und b'shas es kommt Shabbos wird bei Tesefes Kedusha. Then Shabbos will be an extra Kedusha. Shabbos Shabbosein, was damit wird verantwortet die dritte Kasche. And now we answered the third question, which is what? Why do we lean? Right. You get it ready? Peter Grinson. Oh my gosh, David asks a question. What if you tell a story on Shabbos that is related to the workplace? So, yes, I would agree with Yisrael's answer that if you're using this story to teach a lesson in Avodas Hashem and it happened to have taken place at work, yeah, but the point is a Hayra in Avodas Hashem, then it's a beautiful thing to tell such a story. But if it's like... I heard you have a car to sell, the old joke. Should we tell the Shabbos joke? Balabas comes up to his friend in Shabbos, in Shul on Friday night, after Likkutei Sichos. He's like, I heard you have a car to sell. He's like, yeah, $1,000. He's like, it's too much. And the next morning, Shachar sees him, comes over and says, listen, I was thinking I could do it. Best I could do is 800. I'm sorry. Nicht auf Shabbos. I killed the joke. Comes up to him Friday night. Kabbalah Shabbos says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat. I heard you selling your car. He says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat $1,000. He says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat too much. Next morning, Shachar, he sees him. He says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat. The best I can do is 800. He says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat, no deal. He says, 900. Mincha, he comes over to him. Shal Shudis. He says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat. You know what? I think I could do the 900. He says, Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat. It's sold already. You never heard that before? No. It's sold already. Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat. The whole deal is done. Nicht auf Shabbos Gerat. Okay. So that kind of workday story is not. That's not good. Okay. Yeah. So we answered the third kasha. What was the third kasha? Let's go back to the beginning, to page 187. So question 3 was, why does it say Shabbos Shabbosin? So we just answered Shabbos Shabbosin because, well, oh, you went back to it. Very good. Thank you, Yisrael. That makes up for when you didn't flip the page at the right time. All right. So why is it Shabbos Shabbosin? Because, well, actually the Rebbe gives 2 reasons. Because even your week will be Shabbos-like, because you're not overly immersing yourself in your work. And the other reason is that Shabbos Shabbosin, that Shabbos will be like the Big Daddy Shabbos. Big Daddy Shabbos. Okay. All right. Unleit dem vet verantwortet werden euch die zweite kasha. Now we're going to answer the second kasha. Go flip it back to 187. What was the second question? The second question, base, you see there, is why does it say these are things Hashem told you to do, and it doesn't say what are the things to do? Now we're going to understand that. Warum? Da is nicht der Zivui auf Shabbos, nor wie soll man zukommen zu Shabbos. Remember we said, these are things you should do. Is it talking about Shabbos? Shabbos was already commanded in the 10 Commandments many weeks prior. So now we're answering that and saying, no, it's not the commandment to keep Shabbos. Yeah, you're right. That was already given in the 10 Commandments. It's the formula how to actually experience Shabbos. Beyond just the commandment to keep Shabbos. This is the secret sauce, how to have a Shabbos experience. Okay. Hey. Leid dem wird man euch verstehen, die Sheichos von Vayekhel, Mishkan, Mishkan, Yom Teos, melachos zu Machres Yom Kippurim, as das is der Seder Tikun of Chet Egel. Now we're going to also understand why this happened the day after Yom Kippur, which constitutes the atonement, the full atonement for the sin of the golden calf. Wegen Chet Avodah Zarah sagt der Rambam, als das ist gekommen mit Zadem, was die Ashpa Milamayla geht durch Kechav Mazalas, also wie es steht, Meget wo Shemesh Goimer. What is Avodah Zarah? The Rambam says it's because of the mistake that people make, that there is a flow of energy that comes through the constellations, like we say, the bounty of the sun, is agam ze sein euch meide as die kechav mazal sein in nor mumutzoyb. Even the original idol worshippers would admit that the constellations are only intermediaries. Aber von deswegen nevertheless, they call God the God of the gods. They say the intermediaries are also gods, minor gods, sub-gods, but also gods. Der emes aber is as mentor ze nit dinin val ze seinen nor kagarz beyad chetzev. The truth is that these intermediaries, however, should never be served because they are nothing more than an axe in the hand of the wood chopper. So yeah, the constellations are a mighty delivery system for pumping godly creative energy into the world. But they're just tools, and they have no autonomy. And therefore, it's foolish to attribute any type of power to them and to give them any type of honor. That's how the Rambam explains the origins of idol worship. In Chassidus wird erklärt, as Bedakas Yeser is an edlen Eifen, is der liegen mit Hishtadlus und Tachbuleis in Esek Eich and Inyan von Avodah Zarah Chas v'shalom. Chassidus explains that by the same token, the way that Rambam explains idol worship, being too mentally immersed into your job is also Avodah Zarah. It's the same mechanics. It's the same error. Why? Weil das kommt von dem, was man halt dem Esek, dem Mutza, Farach Shivis und Teierkeit. Because it's the same concept. He thinks of his job, which is the delivery system, as having importance unto itself, even though he knows that ultimately his parnasa comes from Hashem's blessings. He knows that it comes from Hashem's blessings. Just like the idol worshippers know that God is the God of the gods. But they attribute importance to the intermediaries rather than realizing that the intermediaries are just tools with no say, with no autonomy. Von deswegen is machshiv und halt tired dem Asik, even though he knows the blessings ultimately come only from Hashem. He gives credence, he gives importance to the intermediaries, und derfar legt Sicha rein in them mit sein Seichel, and that's why he gives it his intellectual attention. Was das is dugmas hishtachava, oy vey, and that's like bowing. What's bowing? Bowing is lowering your head. Harkonas hareish. Beugt ein die Kopf zu dem. He puts his head down to it. Literally, your brain is in your head. Now you're putting your head into your parnasa. That's called bowing to it. It's a famous story. There was a chassid who had a rubber boots factory, galoshes factory, and he spent the Shabbos in Lubavitch with the Rebbe Rashab. And he was clearly thinking about his factory during Shabbos, and the Rebbe Rashab said to him after Shabbos, you know, I've seen many people with their feet in their galoshes. This is the first time I see someone with his head in his galoshes. Und noch ärger, warum Harkonas Hareish is nor begashmias, und da legt doch herein sein Kapperuchnias, sein Seichel in dem Mamutza, weil halt es farach shivas. It's actually worse than physical bowing. Because physical bowing is only physical. It's interesting how the Rebbe is phrasing it. This is spiritually lowering your head. Like, it's deeper. It's more. It's more real in a way. Like, bowing physically could be perfunctory. Okay, yeah, bow. You just make a show of it. But here, you're literally taking your head, meaning your intellect, putting it into your business. So you're bowing to it. It's okay. I'm not saying it's literal halachic Avodah Zarah with the prohibitions of Avodah Zarah, but it is. We called it bedakus. On a subtle level, it is the same erroneous thinking that leads to idol worship. Das heißt, als der Inyan von Sheshes Yom mit der Tasse, mit der Pasach, Malacha bis Askus, kommt mit dem, was is machshiv dem Asik. So, if it would be Tasa, do work, it's that he thinks the work itself is important. Aber Shas bei ihm legt sich up der Emes, as das is nor kegarz mit hachaytzev, but when he knows the truth, that his job is just a tool, like an axe in the hand of the wood chopper. Dan liegt nit reishaver in dem Asik. He doesn't put his head and his body into it. Und führt sich in dem Seder von and he just lets it be done. He lets it get done without being too involved. Like dem wird man verstehen, noch hatam auf dem, was der Mantanhoge is, weil bei legt sich ab in sein Seichel, als nicht der Esek gibt dem Parnasa, nor als durch ein Esek hat der Parnasa von dem So now we also understand why is it Teasa. He understands that his job is not generating income, but it's actually just happening from Hashem. Like, almost leave me out of it. Yeah, I'll show up, but like, leave me out of it. I don't have to be active. And like them is euch verstandig, die Sheiches von Vayekhel Mische, zu dem Machres Yom Kippurim, warum der Seder Tikkun v'Akiras Chet Aveda Zara is Sheishas Yom Tase Te'ase Malacha B'derech Memela. Now we understand why this happens the day after Yom Kippur. Because Yom Kippur constitutes the full atonement for idol worship from the sin of the golden calf. So the full atonement for idol worship is now a healthy approach to work. That work, even during the 6 days, should be te'aseh. It shouldn't be idolatrous taseh, where you put yourself into it and think it actually creates more income. It should be a healthy te'aseh, where you realize it's just a vessel and the real blessings or the real income is from the blessings of Hashem. Okay, Vav. Der dermante inyan fud. Yegaita b'derech memela. You should toil in an automatic way, as if it's done by itself. Is veran euch in a hechere eifen, nit in dem esik bidvar magashim, nor in a vedas havaya. Okay, now, we said how this applies in a relationship with your work. Now that Abba is going to up the ante, is going to make it even more demanding. It also describes a proper way of approaching your ruchnistika aveda. Because even in your ruchnias, there's a good way and there's an even better way. That's the way I'll say it. Nice. Okay. Und euch in dem is the te'asa b'derech memela tikkun often cheta ego. And even in the way you serve Hashem, even in your spiritual life, there's a way to do it as te'asa b'derech memela, and it is a tikkun for the cheta ego, for the sin of the golden calf. They're declaring their fun. Here's the explanation. The Mishnah sagt, the Mishnah says, do not be like the servants who serve their master in order to receive a reward. As das, was lernt Torah und mekayem mitzvahs, is weil füllt a Geschmack in them. Somebody could serve Hashem, does mitzvahs, learns Torah, because he likes it. Filled naim arevis umesikos in Torah mitzvahs. He feels a pleasantness and a sweetness in Torah mitzvahs. Das wird angerufen amanas lekabel pras, and that actually is called a reward. You understand? This is on a very, very high level, but the pleasure that he has in serving Hashem could become an ulterior motive. We're going to say that. We're about to say that. So the payoff that he gets, and we're talking about a very spiritually sensitive person because he's enjoying Torah and mitzvahs, but that becomes the focus. The enjoyment becomes a focus. Der tachos aveda is shalei amanas lekabel pras, but the ultimate form is not for the payoff, not even the spiritual payoff of feeling enjoyment. Yeah, we always come back to that theme. Always come back. Kabbalah Soul, absolutely. Right.
If we're going to just copy and paste that, it kind of sounds like we're saying, do mitzvahs without kavanah. Just do the action.
Right. Okay, so we're going to explain it. We're going to explain.
No, you still want to do it kavanah, but you don't want to do it amanas.
Right. Okay, so he's going to explain it here. Das heißt nicht mitzad dem Geschmack, nur mitzad Kabbalah Soil, Malchus Shamayim, was will, ausführen dem Ratzon Elyon. Means when you do a mitzvah, don't do it because of the spiritual payoff, of the enjoyment, but rather because that's what needs to be done. Kabbalah Soil. Umitzad dem heißt es yegia b'derech memela. And that's what's called toiling in an automatic way, that it's getting done. He's going to explain it, because it's a little bit of a paradox. There's two things. Yegia and b'derech memela don't go together. Yegia is just toiling. That's active. B'derech memela means it's just happening. How can they go together? It's a paradox. It's oxymoron. Okay. Yegia, toil, wie bald tut das nicht mitzad sein Geschmack verteinig ist das ein Inyan von Yegia Kana. It's called toil because he's not doing it out of enjoyment. B'derech, in Nissen Nemanov, it says he was so into Askafia that when he was learning Torah and he was really enjoying it, let's say he was learning Nigla, he was learning Gemara, he would put it away and go learn Chassidus. And if he was learning a Maimer and he all of a sudden starts to, Geschmack, he would put it away and open up a Gemara. So it should never be for the Geschmack. It's not telling you not to enjoy it. Of course, if you're spiritually sensitive, you are going to enjoy it. But don't get pulled into it that becomes the focus, the payoff. Okay. So, b'derech memele, but what does it mean, b'derech memele? It's done automatically. B'shas, die Aveda is mitzad hergish v'ha'enig chulu, ken ramol tos haben, und meinen, as tut das bekeich v'etzim yodeh. When he's doing it and enjoying it, sometimes he forgets about Hashem. And he thinks he's really doing it. Mitzadem was, there's a story I heard about a chassid in Russia. It was during the war, and he had to hide somewhere, and he was hiding in some shack. There was bombing. It was during the war. And he finds himself there Friday night with some guy, and the guy is smoking and learning a Gemara. And so the chassid says, I don't get it. If you're not religious, why are you learning Gemara? And if you're religious, why are you smoking on Shabbos? He says, I'm Horetz Bistu. You're an ignoramus. If you knew how Gishmak Gemara was, you wouldn't ask me this question. I enjoy smoking, I enjoy Gemara. They're both enjoyable, right? All right. So, obviously that's a very low level example. Right. Right. Tzarchet Tzibur is the Mesiras Nefesh. Yeah. So when a person does it totally because he enjoys it, he could forget about Hashem and just think it's all him. It's all about him. Mitzad dem was hat gute Kishreines and gute Midas lernt der Torah and git tzedakah v'chulo klaus mitzvahs. He thinks because he has the talent and he has good midas. That's why he's learning. And that's why he does mitzvahs. Tasa, he's doing it. But when he does it as an acceptance of the yoke of heaven, then he understands it's not his koyach, it's not his power, nor mitzad siyata dishmaya, te'asa. It's from siyata dishmaya, it's from heavenly assistance, te'asa. So you're saying before you said, nobody could hear you because you're not on the mic. Maybe we should get you a mic. That you don't want to just carry over the same hayra that we had about work, where you're not supposed to totally get into it and plug that into the way you're supposed to serve Hashem, because then it could sound like, you should serve Hashem and not get totally into it. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying, you're right. What he's saying is that even when you're getting into it, don't focus on the pleasure, because then it becomes a personal thing. It becomes that you like it, and then you feel like you're doing it, and it becomes sort of almost like this secular thing. It's just some people enjoy stamp collecting. I enjoy learning Gemara. All right, God forbid. So, of course, you still need kavanah. But the point is, you realize the only reason that this stuff has its power is because Hashem is giving it that power. And I am just the vehicle through which it's happening. And I'm privileged to be the vehicle through which it's happening right now. Like it says, open up for me like the eye of a needle, and I open up for you like the courtyard. As das, was der Mensch tut, it tut, is mir nit wie kechodesh al-machad. A person's side is just like a little eye of a needle. A kleine Öffnung von a needle. A little opening of a needle. Und der Iker kommt mit Zad Melamayla va'ani yaftach. But the main thing is Hashem's opening. So don't think that your mitzvahs are so powerful because of you. You are just a small part of it. Noch mehr euch die Achone zu kiyama mitzvahs kommt von dem Eibishten. And another thing, even more, furthermore, even the preparation for the mitzvah is also from Hashem. What does that mean? Like Maimer Zal al pasuk mi hikdimani va'ashalem. There's a pasuk in Eov. Who came before me that I should pay him back? Mi asali maike ad shalai nesati legag. Is there anyone who made a Micah guardrail, which is a mitzvah, before I, Hashem, gave him a roof? Mi asali tzitzis ad shalai nesati loi talis. Is there anyone who did the mitzvah of putting fringes on his garment before I, Hashem, gave him a garment? So Hashem says, even the raw materials, even the conditions that were created within which you're able to do the mitzvah, Hashem says, I gave you that also. You were born on third base. Und der Fahr heißt es bederich memela. That's why it's called automatic. Al derech hanal begashmis b'pirish habeis, like we're saying in the physical stuff, the second explanation, which is knowing that it's really not you that's doing it. That's, by the way, what Yisrael, what he's trying to bavar in here, is it's not like Pirish Aleph. Pirish Aleph is don't get too into it. So here is not telling you don't get too into it. It's a way to Hashem, you should get into it. But here it's like Pirish HaBeis, which is know that you're not the cause. It's really something happening through you. So too, when you're doing mitzvahs, understand that you're the funnel. Don't say that it's happening because I'm choosing it to happen and I'm making it happen and I'm so talented and I'm so spiritually sensitive and blah, 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 blah. Say it's happening because Hashem's making it happen and I'm lucky that it's happening through me. Or I'm lucky that I'm allowing it to happen through me. You get a little credit. You're allowing it to happen through you. Okay. Warum fehlt as nicht mit sein Arbeit haben sich aufgetan alle in Yonim, because he realizes it's not his work that's making everything happen. Nor as sein Arbeit is mehr nicht wie a Kli und ein Zinner. His work is just a vessel, just a pipeline, a conduit zu dem Va'ani for Hashem to open up the big opening. Es tut sich auf bederich memela. It's all happening on its own. I mean, not really on its own, but it's happening from Hashem. But from his perspective, he's not the one making it happen, so don't take too much credit. Feel privileged, feel fortunate, feel blessed. Okay. Zayin. Zayin, wie gesagt, Frère, ist euch der Ingen von Yegia bederich memela in Ruchnias a tikkun of Chet Egel. Like we said before, the idea of toiling in an automatic way where it's just happening through you, even in your service of Hashem, not just the way you work, but also the way you do your avodah. That is a rectification of the sin of the golden calf. Why? How? We said before that a healthy approach to making a living rectifies idolatry, because giving too much credence to the means of livelihood is idolatrous, just like idolatry is giving credence to the intermediaries which deliver the flow of divine blessing. But now we're talking about a proper attitude toward Avodas Hashem. How is that also a rectification of the sin of the golden calf? Wird man es verstehen, Leut, wie es ist bewusst, as der Chet Egel is der selber Inyan von Chet Eitzadas. So we understand this first by prefacing that the sin of the golden calf is a repetition of the sin of the tree of knowledge. K'mamerizala b'shas Chet Eitzadas yadu zuhamala elam u'b'shas ma'an Torah paska zumason b'shas Chet Egel chazra. At the time of the sin of the tree of knowledge, a spiritual filth came into the world. At the time of Matan Torah, it was lifted. At the time of the sin of the golden calf, it returned. Der Ingen von Chet Eitzadas ist doch bewusst, dass das ist der Ingen von Hergisch, fühlen sich also wie steht, Vetira ha'isha kitayva eitzla Michael v'kitayva hulei nayim. The whole concept of the sin of the tree of knowledge is the idea of hergish, of feeling, self-awareness, self-consciousness. Like it says, it started with awareness, that self-awareness, that the woman thought, oh, that tree would be good for me. That's yummy. That looks pleasing. Men der fehlt dem Geschmack. It's the feeling of personal pleasure. Is der tikkun of dem yigeh b'derech memela. And the way to rectify that is that the work comes through you in an automatic way. Anstatt dem, was es ist gewähnt mitzad hergisch, darf sein yigeh kabbalah. In other words, instead of it being because of your personal pleasure, you're doing it out of submission, out of acceptance of the yoke of heaven. Let me explain this. There's something called spiritual hedonism. we all know, material hedonism, people eating, like Josh Gordon, Elo Shalom, calls it 7-layer cake, which we all know is a euphemism for other things. But then there's spiritual hedonism, where one serves Hashem because of the fulfillment that it brings. The problem is that it causes you to be wrapped up in your own subjective experience, which is very limiting. In order to be free from that, you serve Hashem not on your terms as limited by your capacity for pleasure, but you serve Hashem on His terms, which is unlimited because He is infinite. And the only way for us to attach ourselves to infinity is by getting out of our personal payoff and just surrendering to Hashem, who's infinite. Und anstatt dem, was hat gemeint, als bekeken zum Jode, als darf sein, bederich memele. Instead of feeling that it's his prowess and capabilities which are accomplishing for him, and here we're talking about in spiritual accomplishments, instead of feeling that his spiritual attainments are because of his own talents or abilities, but he realizes rather he's merely a conduit through which all of this good stuff is happening. Okay. And that we call a rectification of the sin of the golden calf, because the sin of the golden calf really traces back to the sin of the tree of knowledge, and the sin of tree of knowledge is self-consciousness. When you serve Hashem, but you're using it as a way to experience yourself more, to be more self-aware. And I know self-aware can be a good thing, but here we're not talking about self-aware in like a humble way of like owning up to your deficiencies and correcting what you've done wrong. That's a good self-aware. But here we're talking about self-aware like you're stuck in your own head, which is very limiting. And surrendering to God's will is very freeing. So that's what we're talking about, that serving Hashem in a way where you depersonalize it almost, you just say, I'm the conduit. What happens is you rectify the sin of the tree of knowledge. Instead of making it subjective and personal and limited, it becomes objective truth. It becomes universal. It becomes unlimited. Okay. Ches. Leit dem allemen wird man euch verstehen, was sagt in Pasuk, wie Yakel Moshe es kol, adas bnei Yisrael gomer, und nicht wie gewöhnlich wie jemer gomer. Now we're going to also understand why it says Moshe gathered. Because normally it doesn't say he gathered anyway, it just says he started speaking. Azoi, wie es ist gewesen, Machres Yom Kippur, der Inyan von Kippur, auf ein Egel, was hat Machzir gewesen, so ama von Chet Zadas, und man hat gedacht, Peilen in Welt, sie soll sein, wie vor dem Chet, warum Elam, Almuluye Nivra, was Tachas gewonnen ist doch, Goy echad ba'aretz, soll sein, Rishus HaYachid, der dir Allah Yisbarach betachtenim, in der Warum Gashmim Davke, und sie sollen sein, der dir zu Achduse Watzmus Yisbarach, ist euch dem Gewinn wie Yakel Moshe. Hat zusammengeklebt, alle in Yonim, Lachdus Amiti. Okay. Just like it was the day after Yom Kippur, which is the idea of atonement for the sin of the golden calf, which caused the impurity of the sin of the tree of knowledge to return to the world. And we're trying to put the world back to the way it was before the sin of the tree of knowledge, because the world was originally created perfect. And what we're trying to do is accomplish what we call our mission of Goy Echad Ba'aretz. The Jewish people are a nation which brings Echad, oneness, Ba'aretz, into physicality. That the world was created originally, like the Rebbe says in Basi Lagani, the Shechina was here in this world. We're trying to reinstate that. We're trying to make this world into a Rishus HaYachid. In Shabbos, you talk about Rishus HaRabim, Rishus HaYachid. So in Chassidus, in Kabbalah, Rishus HaRabim means the world of many things, where you think that every little creation has its own independent reality. And Rishus HaYachid, it means that you view the world as an expression of Hashem's oneness. It's all really one thing, which is Adar Yisbarach, that the world in all of its complexity is really all one thing. It's just a place for Hashem, but it's specifically in the physical, not in the spiritual realm where that happens, and that the physical world becomes a place for Hashem's oneness. So that's what it means, Vayekhel, gathering it all up, meaning the Avodah of Vayekhel means that instead of looking at a world that's made of separate people and things and forces of nature, and they're all sort of doing their own thing, Achdus, oneness, it's all one thing. Unified field theory that Einstein was looking for, how to condense everything to one grand theory. It's all one thing. It's all Hashem, Ein Mavadeh. So that's the Vayekhel, taking what seems like separate pieces and realizing that it's all oneness. And that's what you do after Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is the atonement for idolatry. Idolatry is the error of attributing separate importance to each thing. And the rectification of that is to realize it's all one thing. It's only Hashem. Und wie alle Inyanim seinen doch eingeteilt in 3 Darges, Eilam, Shana, V'Nefesh. Now, there's a concept of 3 categories. Eilam, Shana, V'Nefesh. It's from Sefer Yetzirah. It's often brought in Chassidus. Eilam is place. Shana is time. Nefesh is person. 3, like we speak about on Yom Kippur, you have Eilam, the place is Kodesh HaKodashim. Shana, the time is Yom Kippur. Nefesh, the person, the Kohen Gadol. Those 3 things converge. All right, so Eilam, Shana, V'Nefesh. Der Far rechnet Eis in Pasuk die alle 3 Inyanim. So this verse actually alludes to all 3 of these categories. Eila Devarim, these are the things. Lamates Malachos, the 39 forbidden labors on Shabbos. Kol Inyanim Eilam, Inyana Eilam. That means all mundane things. B'chol Meshvei Sechem, in all of your dwelling places, wherever you live. Klolos Von Mokim, Eilam. So that's all places. That's Eilam. Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael, Klolos Von Nefesh. Who is it talking about? The Yidden. That's Nefesh, the person. 6 Yomim Teyasa Malacha V'Yem Shvi Shabbos Shabbosin. 6 days you shall work, on the 7th day you shall rest, or 6 days work shall be done, the 7th day you shall rest. Klolos Von Zman. That's time. That's Shana. So you have all 3 dimensions. To neuf kleiben die alle Inyanim zum Achtas Amiti is Bekeche Shamesha. To put all those things together in Eilam, Shana, and Nefesh, to make it all oneness. Who does that? Moshe does that. That's why Vayekhel, Moshe gathers. What a Moshe is, Mishmita Rishayna, Lamayla B'Ishtalshlis. Moshe is from the original Shemitah. Okay, so we're not talking about the agricultural Shemitah years. We're talking about primordial Shemitahs that exist before creation. In fact, they're higher than Seder Ishtalshus. It's a Kabbalistic concept, but the point is that Moshe is coming from a source way, way higher than created worlds, even though he had an embodiment experience as a person in a flesh and blood body, but he was from a place way beyond created reality, even beyond the highest spiritual worlds. Der Far is bekechet in neuf kleiben alle inyanim zum achtas amitin. That's why Moshe was able, down here in this world, to gather it all up and to expose the underlying oneness of it all. Und dasselbe is euch bekechet shal Moshe was gefindt sich in Yidden, and so too the Moshe in every individual Jew. What's the 8th day song? Moses and me. I got a little bit of Moses in me. Yeah, okay. Leut wie es wird declared in Tanya, like it's explained in Tanya, I believe Perek Mem Beis. Let's see if I'm right. Yeah, Perek Mem Beis. Be'inyan in Lagabe Moshe Milsa Zatar Tehi. Is fear a small matter? This is all Hashem is asking you, is to fear Hashem. That's all he's asking. What are you acting like it's a small deal? Well, yeah, for Moshe it's a small deal, but it's not asking him, Moshe. It's asking each one of us. But there's a little bit of Moses in me, and that's for the Moses in me, which is the das, the ability to connect and focus deeply on matters of godliness. It is a small matter to fear Hashem. And therefore, the Moses in me can do a Vayekhel Moshe, can take everything in my life that looks like it's separate and acting autonomously and realizing it's all one thing. Debt consolidation. All I got to do is connect to Hashem. Greinem used to tell a story. You remember Greinem, right? Remember Greinem used to verbring with us? Yeah, I'm joking. I never met the guys who... I'm so young, I never even met guys who used to talk about Greinem. I met guys who knew the guys who used to talk about Greinem. Greinem was a mashpia. Anyways, Greinem used to say, there was a guy says to his friend, "Oy vey, I got so many problems." "Really? What are your problems?" "Oh, I got to marry off my daughter, and I got to pay for a chasna, and I got to have a naden, a dowry, and I got to get a set them up at an apartment, and it's just it's so overwhelming." So his friend says to him, "And all those things, if you add it all up, how much does it all cost?" He's like, "All of it, all together, 1,000 ruble." So his friend says to him, "You don't have a ton of problems. You have one problem. Where are you going to get 1,000 ruble?" Okay, that's called debt consolidation. Vayekhel Moshe, gather it all up. It's only one thing. It's serving Hashem. That's it. That's all there is. Was durch der Avede wird ausgeführt die Tachlis HaKavana von der Bria. Through serving Hashem, we accomplish the ultimate purpose of creation. As es wird azoi wie far dem chet was elam al maluyah nivra. We put things back to the way it was before the sin of the tree of knowledge, because the world was created perfect. Was die Shleimus von dem begoloi wird sein lasid. Now, when is that going to be completely revealed? When Mashiach comes. Wie der Maimer Azal Samach Shabbos melachos Mishkan. In Torah, Shabbos and the building of the Mishkan are juxtaposed. They are next to each other. As durch der Aveda vet zayin binyan beis hamikdash hashlish b'meherav yameinu. That through the Aveda of Shabbos, which we're explaining Shabbos means the healthy attitude toward work, the healthy attitude toward Avodas Hashem, understanding that we're just a vessel. That is what will bring about the sanctification of the entire world and the building of the third Beis HaMikdash b'meherav yameinu. Sheyiboneh Beis HaMikdash b'meherav yameinu v'zein chalkeinu b'seira Sicha. Not tchilasan b'seifin v'seifin b'tchilasan, like Tzevi Yitzira says. It was not planned. The ends are wedged in the beginnings are wedged in the ends. Sheyiboneh Beis HaMikdash b'meherav yameinu v'zein chalkeinu b'seira Sicha. By the way, that long Sicha was actually a mimer. It was from Mitoich Mimer di B'Maschem Vayekhel Tavshin Yud Beis. It's from a mimer of Tavshin Yud Beis. Okay. Take a breather here, and we have another Sicha, a short one, a short Sicha, very short actually. It's less than a page. See this? Just no, don't run away. We're on 193. Yeah. Okay. It's just 2 chapters, 9 and 10. All right. Give me a second here to breathe. Okay, here we go. Tess. Von Pasuk Ele Dvarim Goimer, from the verse. These are the things. Learned up the Gemara di Lamites Malachos welche seinen Asar Shabbos. The Gemara learns from this the 39 prohibited forms of creative labor. Und die Gemara sagt Malacha davi b'Mishkan havi Malacha. Any work that was done in the construction of the tabernacle is considered a labor on Shabbos. A Malacha was given now in Yiddish. A Malacha was given Mishkan heißt a Malacha und sie ist Asr Shabbos. Okay. Von dem, was die Lamites Malachos lernt man ab von die Malachos HaMishkan, ist doch verstandig, als die Lamites Malachos seien verbunden mit die Malachos HaMishkan. From the fact that we learn one out from the other shows us there's a connection. It's not just this random thing. There's a deeper meaning behind it. Es ist doch bewusst, as jeder Limud in Torah is nicht zufällig, chas v'shalom. We know every limud, every method of learning one thing out from another thing in Torah, it's not random. Nor as der melamed mitten lamed seinen bepnimius ein inyan. But rather, the melamed and the lamed, the thing that teaches and the thing that's learned, are actually one concept. That's a deep idea there. Not just that they're connected, but ultimately they are both the same idea being expressed in different ways. But they're one idea. So how are the 39 forbidden Shabbos labors and building the Beis HaMikdash one and the same concept? Not just related, but literally the same idea. Unser Verbund is a zweiten Dicker. And there are two levels to this relationship. Aleph, der Sheirish von die Lamites melachos is melachos ha-Mishkan. Das heißt, as alle melachos kommen bestalshelis von melachos Mishkan. So one level of relationship is which is the origin and which is the symptom. That the way of building the Mishkan, that's like the origin. And from that is nishtalshel, devolves, becomes expressed. It says the exact opposite. That the Sheirish, the Sheirish of the Lamites Melachos is the building of the Mishkan. The outer expression of it are the 39 forbidden Shabbos labors, but the origin of it in its archetype, let's call it, is the building of the Mishkan. So that's one way that they are one concept. Base, der Fahr ist euch der Ziel und Tachlis von alle Melachos, euch von Melachos Reshus, zu machen durch Zaya Mishkan v'dirolei Yisbarach, azay v'yesh steht b'chol drocha chodehu. The purpose of all of the 39 labors is the same as the purpose of the building of the Mishkan, which is namely to make a dwelling place in this physical world for Hashem, which is the concept of you should know Hashem in all of your ways, that even when you're involved in physical labor, when you're doing mundane things, your real goal is to make a dwelling place for Hashem. Okay. Yud. Like dem wird men euch verstehen, was mir gefinnen, as in die Tag, was men megton molacha, is men memait in Inyanim wie Kriyas HaTorah und Tfilos Neusafes, weekday nicht zu verkürzen die Zeit von Malacha. According to this, it helps us to understand why during weekdays there are certain aspects of Avodas Hashem, like the Torah readings, communal Torah readings, are shorter. Monday, Thursday Torah reading is shorter than a Shabbos Torah reading. And also Tfilos Neusafes, additional prayers, like Musaf, let's say, you don't do. I mean, it's because the Korbanos, but even like adding on more prayers. And the reason is because you're supposed to have time for work. Yeah, and that's based on the Gemara in Brochus, Tezayin Omid Aleph. Also in Megillah, Chav Beis Omid Beis, Kedushin, Lamed Gimel Omid Aleph. Few sources in the Gemara for this concept that we do minimize certain extra things in Avodas Hashem in order to leave more time for work. Noch mehr. Often pasuk, and that points to the significance of the work, that the work is not just because, you're a person, you have to work, people work, that's what they do, you have to be normal. No. Working in the world is building a Mishkan. You're sanctifying the physical world and making a Dira B'Tachtenim. Noch mehr. Often pasuk shesh yomim ta'avoid, sagen der Rizal, as das is a mitzvah esse. Interesting. On the verse, 6 days you should work, our sages say that's actually a commandment. Not just, if you want to work, you can work. No, you have to work. In Flug, wie kann das demot sein? How can this possibly be? Aber leit dem, wie man hat gerät, als der Tachlis von alle Melachos is zu machen durch sei a Mishkan. But according to what we just said, that the purpose of physical labor is to make the physical world sanctified, to make it into a sanctuary. Is moving as das as a mitzvah. Now it's understandable why working can be a mitzvah. Und ein Mensch darf ständig harven in dem, ki adam la'amal yulad. And a person should always work. He should work hard, because a person was born to work. Warum der Chiluk von der ganze Welt bis der Mishkan is nur der Chiluk von Keach bis Peil. Because, says the Rebbe, the difference between the Mishkan and the whole world is only a matter of actualization and potential. You hear that? What that means is the entire world is a Mishkan in potential. Der Mishkan is a Mishkan bepeil, und die ganze Welt is a Mishkan bekeach. Beautiful. The Mishkan is a Mishkan. The world is also a Mishkan in potential. And we have to bring that out. How? By sanctifying the world. Darf man ausnutzen jede Regel auf Malacha, was wie gesagt, bringt sie von Keach in Toil. Jede Regel ist da, der Ansag bechol drachecha deho. This is a Sicha from Purim, Tafshin Chai, famous long Fabrengen of Purim Tafshin Chai. But here the Rebbe is saying a little bit different than the previous Sicha, which is based on a mimer from Tafshin Yud Beis, where the Rebbe said, even though your work can be a way of b'chol drachacha dehu, in all your matters you should serve Hashem. Even in your mundane matters you can serve Hashem, must serve Hashem. A person is just yearning to get back to overt Torah mitzvahs. That's what it said in the previous Sicha. In this Sicha, we're focusing on the idea that every mundane act ultimately is building a Mishkan, turning the world into a big giant Mishkan for Hashem. And that's why the 39 prohibited labors are learned from what was done in the Mishkan, because when we do our labors, our 6-day mundane labors in the non-Shabbos days, what are we actually doing? We're in the process of Mishkan building, making the whole world into a giant sanctuary. Okay, that's the end of that short little Sicha. Please turn the page. Page 194. Okay, now we have a third Sicha. Also a short little Sicha. Give me a minute to breathe here. By the way, a Mishkan, sometimes it's called Mishkan, sometimes it's called a Mikdash. Chazal say the Mishkan is the Mikdash. Sheyiboneh beis hamikdash. See how many more times we can get that in. Sheyiboneh beis hamikdash. Remember when I got cyberbullied for singing? Yeah, but then the guy apologized and sent a big fat donation. It was pretty awesome. It was worth getting cyberbullied. The guy sent a big donation. Oh, Hashem. Yeah, we want to thank my cyberbully, who actually became my friend. He actually sent me a whole long, really heartfelt email saying, I was just kidding around with you. I feel like I know you because I watch all your classes and I feel like we're buddies. And so I was just kind of teasing you. And after that, I read that, I was like, you know what? It's okay. You could tease me. It's fine. We're buddies. But you know what? I said to him, not in reality, but in my pretend fantasy, if you're really my buddy and feel comfortable teasing me, why didn't you yell at me about my long hair so I could get a haircut already? Yeah, I saw that. Zalman Volovic screamed at me on Shabbos, I have to get a haircut. That's why last night me and Feta David did a pre-haircut episode of Blood Brothers. I clearly have longer hair. He doesn't even have that long of hair. Okay. Anyways, after this, I'm probably going to go get a haircut. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you know that we have a brush in that cabinet over there? Let's do the next Sicha. Okay. For Pekudei, we could pull out the brush. Okay, fine. Pekudei. No, we're not at Pekudei yet. We're the last Sicha of Vayekhel. Okay, we're on page 194, top of the page. Sif Yud Aleph. Okay. Misha nichnas Adar Marbin besimcha wa wa Misha nichnas Adar marbin besimcha Misha nichnas Adar marbin besimcha. When Adar enters, we increase in joy. I told you already that the way that the Likkutei Sichos Chelik Aleph is set up is according to a leap year. So Vayekhel would be like going into Adar. In our case, we're already getting toward the end of Adar. We're already, whatchamacallit, today is Yates? Yeah, Yates. Okay. When Adar enters, we increase in joy in der Mishnah state, Mishanichnes of Matem Besimcha. When Av comes in, Menachem Av, we decrease in Simcha. Nor the Gemara sagt auf dem Kashem Shemeshen Nichnas Av Matem Besimcha Kach Mishanichnes Adar Matem Besimcha. The Gemara says, just like when Av comes in, we decrease in Simcha, so too, when Adar comes in, we increase in Simcha. Yeah. Zetmen in dem Zweien Yonim Hafchim, we see two antithetical concepts. Aleph und dem Loschen Kashem is mashma, as der Iker is der Mishanichnes of Maten Besimcha, das steht befeirisch in der Mishnah, Masha Enkein, der Mishanichnes Adar Maten Besimcha is das nicht mehr wie Kashem, was man lernt das up von Mishanichnes of. It says just like means the main thing is, and then this other thing is just like that. So which one is which? Just like we decrease in joy when Av comes in, which that is the only one that's actually said in the Mishnah. Mishanichnes Adar is only said in the Gemara. It's not in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says Mishanichnes Av. When Av comes in, we decrease in joy. And then the Gemara says, just like we decrease in joy when Av comes in, so too, we learn from that you increase in joy when Adar comes in. Okay, fine. Base. Li'idach gis, on the other hand, Zedmir as benagel Toil is der Mishanichnes of Maten Besimcha begrenitzt. We see that when Av comes in, we decrease in joy. There's a limit to that. Nit in alts is men memait. We don't decrease in all respects, in all manners. As eine Verein in Yonis Simcha Eichenov. There are still some matters of joy in Av. Aber das, was mich nichnes Adar Matem Besimcha is das, on kein Agbalas bis Adar Yada. But when we increase in joy in Adar, there's no limitations until we come to a point where we don't even know. We go beyond all limitations. All right, so here's the contradiction, seeming contradiction. On one hand, the main thing is decreasing in joy in Av, and from that we learn a secondary thing, which is increasing in joy in Adar. So it would seem like the of decreasing in joy is the main concept, and the Adar increasing in joy is like a secondary concept. But on the other hand, the decreasing in joy in Av is limited. The increasing in joy in Adar is unlimited. Okay. In Flug ist das nicht verstandig, wie bald ist der ganze Indien von Mishanichnes Adar kommt reis von dem Mishanichnes auf Mematin, wie der Loshana Gemara ist Kashem, heint, für was ist der Mishanichnes Adar Besimcha mehr wie der Mishanichnes auf Mematin v'chulu. Since we learn the Adar increase in joy, we learn it from the of decrease in joy, then how come the main thing is limited, but the secondary thing is unlimited? You hear the question? Yud base, bottom of the column. Die Pashete Deklarung in them. The simple explanation. Weil Simcha darf sein allemal. Simcha has to be all the time. Even in Av, you have to be Simcha. as is doch allemal da der Zivui von Ivdos Hashem B'Simcha. Ivdos Hashem B'Simcha, serve Hashem with joy, is always. Der Fahr, as es kommt noch zu Marben B'Simcha, is das unbegrenzt. Therefore, when you start to increase, then it's without limit. Der Mematen is begrenzt, but decreasing is limited. Weil euch demol darf sein gewisse in Yonah Simcha, because even then there has to be some modicum of Simcha. Befrat mitzad dem Tzivu von Ivdos Hashem B'Simcha, especially because we have a commandment, serve Hashem B'Simcha. So that's the simple explanation. Simcha is a constant. There's a certain baseline Simcha that even in the deep mournful time of when you're decreasing Simcha, as much as we decrease it, there's still some level of Simcha. It's always there. But Adar, when we're increasing, go increase as much as you want, as much as you can. There's no limit. That's the simple explanation. The pneumius von der minion is, but here's the deeper explanation. Ready for the deeper explanation? Yeah? Okay. Wie man hat geredet in Maimer, like we said in the Maimer. You know which Maimer? It's the Maimer Kisisa of that same year, and it was said at the same Fabrengen. You know, at the Fabrengen, there's a Maimer and there are Sichos, so this is one of the Sichos, but there was a Maimer in that Fabrengen, and apparently the Maimer was before this Sicha, so that I was referring back to the Maimer that he had already said earlier in that Fabrengen. So like we said in the Maimer, as der Tachlis HaGavana is ois zu führen dem Nesava Kodesh Baruch Hu lies le Yisbarach b'dira b'tachtenim, that the ultimate purpose of everything is to give Hashem a dwelling place in the physical world. As der Eibishter soll haben a dira da lamata, Hashem should have a dwelling place here in the lower realms. Und wie der Mensch was wohnt in a dira, gefindt sich in der dira mit sein ganzen Wesen. And just like a person who dwells in a place, he dwells there with his whole being. Azoi is euch der Pirush von dir betachtenem, as der Ebish soll sein, lamata b'cholatz musim, who says, that Hashem should be able to dwell in this world with his entire essence. Not just giluyim, not just manifestations, revelations, glowing, glimmers, but his very essence. Now, it says, where is Hashem's place? Joy and gladness. Dorten wo der Eibishter gefindt sich is Simcha. Where is Hashem? In a place of joy. So if you want the world to be a dwelling place for Hashem, you have to have joy. Was demol can sein mekeme v'dirasi yisbarach. Then it can be Hashem's dwelling place. Dermit, what's going on? You're standing behind me. I'm getting nervous. Don't be nervous. Dermit is verstandig. What are you setting up? Another microphone? Oh, you're going to talk with me? Oh, I know what you're going to do. You're going to do a duet. I'm giving it away. Dermit is verstandig, was men darf sein, ständig besimcha. Now we understand why you have to always be besimcha. A filo in die Zeiten, was es steht auf seinem Mat, and even in the times where Torah itself tells you to decrease in simcha, darf man euch demult sein besimcha. You have to also be besimcha even then. Even when you're decreasing in simcha, you still have to be besimcha. Why? Because Hashem is always everywhere, and we always want Hashem to be there, and Hashem is present within our simcha. In a gewisse Maß, there has to be a certain amount of simcha. Wie bald as die Dirole Yisbarach muss man machen ständig. You can't take a break from making a dwelling place for Hashem in this world. B'chol rega v'rega, every single minute. Vorum das is doch kol adam, because that's our whole purpose. Ani loy nivresi ela l'shamishes keni. I was only created to serve my Maker. B'meila likt der chiyuv zu sein ständig. That's why you have to be simcha constantly, because simcha is what gives Hashem a place in this world, and giving Hashem a place in this world is something we do all the time. We never take a break, even when we have to decrease in simcha for a given reason. Okay. Das was amol. Yeah. Did you flip the page? Okay. No, you didn't. Now you did. Okay. Okay. Sif Yud Gimel. Oisif Yud Gimel. And you see there, it's Shabbos Mevorchim Adar. Tavshin Tezayin is when this Sicha was said. Okay. Das, was einmal darf sein, der Seder Aveda in zweiten Kav, in verkehrten Kav von Simcha. Now this, that sometimes you have to do the opposite of Simcha. Yeah, there is an Aveda sometimes to decrease the Simcha. Yeah, it's true. Wird man das euch verstehen, Leute, wie es wird declared in dem Maimer? You have to also understand that in light of what was explained in the Maimer. Der Seder, wie man machte, dir lesbarach, al derech Moshel, wie man machte, dir fara melech, bas vedam. Explains in the Maimer that when you make a dwelling place for Hashem, it's compared to when you make a dwelling place for a king of flesh and blood. The erste Sach muss man dem Ort ois reinigen von jeden Schmutz holen. First thing is you got to clean the place out. You got to get cleaners. Und danach beputzt man das mit schönen Kehlen, weekday es soll sein, roile dir es am Melech. And then you decorate it with beautiful furnishings. First you clear it out, clean it, then you put in beautiful furnishings. Azai is das euch in Aveda Ruchnis. So too in our spiritual service of Hashem. Men muss freier oder reis nehmen dem Schmutz. First, you got to take out the dirt. What is that? Was das tut sich auf durch dem kava meriros. You remove the dirt through meriros. You know what meriros is? Bitterness. Don't be bitter, be better. But in this case, do be bitter in order to be better. Tanya explains that atzvos, sadness, is paralyzing. But meriros, bitterness, is motivating. So sometimes you got to get a little bit frustrated with yourself and say, I got to change things. By the way, Pesach is in less than a month, so I just want to ask you a question. A very serious question. Why did the lion love the Seder?
Maror.
Yes, you got that.
I don't know if this worked.
What?
I don't know if this worked, but yeah.
He used to get more, because he liked to get more roar. More roar. Malash and Miriros.
Speaking of Pesach, I want to hear something cool.
Yeah.
You know who's making a siyum this year?
Oh, you're making a siyum?
Yeah.
Which Masechta?
I have to figure it out.
To figure it out, do
You
Talmud.
used to have to do it alone, but now I have a firstborn son. So I have to do it for him.
Yeah. So you're going to do Talmud or something?
Probably.
Hodius, Talmud. One of those easy ones. Okay. So the way you clean out the schmutz is with meriros. Und das ist die Aveda, and this is the Aveda von Chedesh Av. That's the work that we're doing in the month of Av. Matin besimcha, decreasing the simcha. Bechdei reis tzenemen die inyanim von mipnei chatena golinu ma'artzenu, in order to remove the causes of galus. Cause of galus is we did bad stuff, stupid stuff. We did stupid stuff. And we're frustrated with ourselves. So we're a little bit bitter, a little meriros. It's okay. It's a healthy amount of meriros. But that's just getting the place clean. You still didn't move the furniture in. The actual making the dira is through simcha. So yeah, meriros is a part of the process of getting things ready, but the main thing is the simcha. Okay. Das was a state. Yeah, you with me? Okay. Das was a state. This is the last dice. Yudalad. Das was a state in Gemara. Auf der Minion von Mishanichnes Adar Marbin Besimcha, der Dik Shame. Why does it say just like? Just like we decrease in Simcha in Av, so too we increase in Simcha in Adar. We learn Adar out from Av. Was davon ist manchmal der Mishnichnes Adar Marbin bekommt der Reis von der Mishnichnes Av Matin. It seems like one comes from the other. Is das verstandig? Like them, was wird declared in Chassidus? It's understood according to what is explained in Chassidus. As der Yisna Ur kommt mit Teuch HaChoshech Davke. Shlomo Melch says Yisna Ur min HaChoshech. Chassidus explains the advantage of light that comes from dark. Bemele is verstandig as wer ruft der Reis in Adar dem Blickwohl von Simcha Adelayada, das kommt von Choshech Davke. Das heißt, die Aveda von Iskafius et Rachra durch Meriros der Malt is die Simcha Gor Grace Onegrenitz. They're connected. The ability to reach limitless joy in Adar, which is called to the point where we don't even know anymore, that actually comes from the Aveda of, which is the frustration that causes us to grapple with the negativity and subjugate it. And then you have the Yisna Or Mina Chayshach. You have the light that comes from darkness. So the truth is, yes, we learn Adar out from of. Not that the main point of Yiddishkeit is to decrease in Simcha and to be bitter, but it's the preparatory step. It is the prerequisite. It's how you clean the house, and then is designing the house and decorating the house and living in the house and using the house. Okay. Und das ist der Tam, was Dafke in Chedesh Adar is die Simcha an der Grenitz. And that's why in Adar the Simcha is limitless. Weil demult is das gekommen mit Techa Cheshech, because it came out of darkness. Wie steht verrab mit Mame Oretz misyadim. Like it says in the Megillah that many of the peoples of the land became Jewish. Ame Oretz, the peoples of the land, according to Kabbalah, is Gimel Klippus Atameus, the three utterly irredeemable Klippus. They allein seine misyadim. They themselves became Jewish. Gevorn Yehudim. What is a Yehudi, like the Gemara and Megillah says? Because why does it call Mordechai a Yehudi when Yehudi sounds like it means he's from the tribe of Judah, but we know that he's from the tribe of Binyamin, Ishimini. So why does it say Mordechai Yehudi? Because Yehudi could also mean Kaifin Ba'aveda Zara made the Mecholat Torah, Yehudi Malashin Haida, Maida, that he acknowledges Hashem and he denies Aveda Zara. So the Gimel Klippus Tameus become those who affirm Hashem. That's the ultimate Yisna Or Mina Chayshech, the advantage of dark that comes from light. And that happened in Adar. Umitzad dem Aveda der Yisna Or as Purim is der Chiyuv Simcha Adalayada. And that's why on Purim, you have this obligation of being happy to a point of not even knowing, beyond knowing. It's unlimited. Und euch dem ganzen Chedesh Adar darf sein Simcha b'ribui. And there has to be joy the whole month, not just on Purim. Wie sagt, v'hachodesh asher napach. Like the Megillah says, in the month when the decree was flipped over. Der ganze Chedesh Adar, the whole month of Adar is a time of joy because it represents the transformation of dark into light, which is joy. And the more dark that gets turned into light, the more cause for joy. And the joy is unlimited, and the joy creates a home for Hashem. And a home for Hashem is a Mishkan, which is a base of Mikdash. Yehiratzon, Yehiratzon, Yehiratzon Mavanecha, Hashem Elokeinu. Doing a little opera. Velokei Avoiseinu Sheyiboneh Beis HaMikdash b'mheira v'yameinu v'sein chalkeinu b'seira zecha pam paradam pam Sheyiboneh Beis HaMikdash b'mheira v'yameinu v'sein chalkeinu b'seira zecha. Bring the house down. It's time. It's time. Gotta bring the house down. Thank you for joining us this week for Parshas Vayekhel. We'll be taking a brief intermission, and we will immediately start Pekudei on another live stream.
And if you're watching this on a year where they're connected, you can, like in coming years from now. If this is just Vayekhel, you're done for the week.
If it's just Vayekhel because it's a leap year,
then we're finished.
Then we're
this week's
finished for the
program.
week. But
on a
if
year.
it's not a leap year and Vayekhel and Pekudei are together,
You can go to the next
now
video.
it's time to go to the next video and go watch the
Exactly.
Pekudei. Thank you for joining us for Vayekhel. Okay. Give me a minute.